Hello, welcome to JewelleryMaker Academy. My name's Alison Tarry and today we're going to have a look at some quick makes. These are really great little projects that are suitable for people of all abilities. I love making them now, they'll sell well, people love them. If you've not had a vast amount of experience, these are suitable. If you've had years and years of experience, these are great fun projects to make anyway. So, what are we going to need to make these projects? We've got some 1mm wire, we've got some 0.6 wire, we've got some 0.4 wire. Your 1mm wire can often be swapped with 0.8 wire, and I'll let you know for each of the projects whether it's suitable or not. But if you struggle to manipulate it, then you might want to do it with 0.8. Not all of the projects are suitable for it, but I'll take you through that when we come to it. You're going to need a ring mandrel, because we've got a ring in these tutorials. Some baling pliers. Don't have to have baling pliers. The difference between your baling pliers and your round nose pliers is the taper. So this makes it very easy to get a consistent size of loop or whatever you turn, whereas this is more difficult. You can mark these with indelible pen and use that. This is just a quick and easy way of getting something that's very consistent. You've got a flat nose pliers and you've got some sort of cutters. Your side cutters are great. Once you've been doing wire work for a bit longer, you might want to upgrade to a pair of flush cutters. But you can use your side cutters for these projects absolutely fine. So let's get cracking, and we're going to go through this and I'm going to take you through everyone step by step and we'll see how we get on. Okay, let's go to the first chapter. So this bracelet, it's a great little bracelet. It's very sizable. You can alter the size very easily just by putting more or less beads on it. I've got about 20 beads here. So these are a 6mm round, gemstone round. You've got to have a decent sized drill hole with these. This is the crucial thing. So I'm going to thread them onto 1mm. As I said in the introduction, some of these projects are suitable for 0.8. I would say this isn't one of them, purely because you want that strength you're going to get from the 1mm. You are going to wrap it and you are going to have the gemstones on it, but I would personally keep it as a 1mm. You're not doing any heavy manipulation with the 1mm, so it shouldn't be any issue. So I'm just going to slide all of these beads onto the 1mm. If you want to do this with an 8mm or a 10mm gemstone or an irregular gemstone, that's absolutely fine. It will work just the same with whatever you choose. Smaller ones, it will work with smaller ones, but again, you've got the issue of actually putting it on the wire to begin with. It would work with seed beads, but then you're getting a little bit small. So I would suggest no smaller than a 4mm. A 6 or an 8 is perfect. 10 is quite chunky. Be aware the size of the bead will have an effect on the inner size of your bangle. Why is that important? Well, because when you've got a bigger bead, it's taking up space that you would. So if you've got roughly a 7-inch wrist, if you add that bigger bead in, then and you've done this to 7 inches, then it's narrowed that to probably 6 3/4. So it has an effect there. So you'd need a slightly bigger bracelet than you would normally anticipate. So this can be done straight. I would tend to do it on the curve. This is the wire. I've just taken this straight off the reel, and you can see that curve still happening there, which is roughly about the size. Well, it's going to be bigger than I want it, but we'll address that. I'm going to create a loop at the start. So we're going to add a clasp to this. So I just want a sort of middle-sized loop, and I'm going to turn it back with my stepper pliers until it meets the wire. I personally don't like the P, so I'm going to turn it around, pop it back in, and I'm going to use the other side of the pliers to turn that until I've got that eye pin. You might want to just go back in, because when you bend it back it will come away, and fasten it up. As we go around, you can either do it now or later, and that is, we're going to actually turn that 90 degrees. Doesn't matter whether you do it now or later, and again I'm just going to make sure that that is up to there. Okay, so we've got our basic starting place. Make sure, if you're not on the reel, that you've got some means of the beads not falling off. So I'm just going to put a loop in there. I have too many times emptied my beads onto the floor and had to pick them up, so it's something I'll always mention, because you're not going to be keeping an eye on what's going on here when you're concentrating on what's going on there. We're going to wrap with a 0.6mm wire. So I am going to leave that on the reel. And we're going to, but it may well fall off. There we go. I'm going to start at the top by our loop, and we're going to do 3 or 4 wraps. It's up to you. You can make a feature of it just to secure the wire. So you want it nice and tight. So I've done 4 times round, and I'm going to leave that tail sitting there for a minute until we've finished. Right, we're ready to go. We're going to take our first one, and I am going to cut this off. There we go. We're going to take our first bead, slide it into position, then we're going to take our wire around underneath. You can do it on the reel, but it's going to be easier on screen. So it's going up and over the bead, and then you're going to wrap it again. So you go underneath the 1mm, and then around again. Why do you go around again? It stops the wire sort of jumping out of place. It locks that in. It also gives you a sort of space between the beads, which lets you see the gemstones as you want them. So you can see that little space effect coming in. We're going to take that over the top, pull it through and around. And you're going to keep doing that all the way around these beads. It's a nice quick make. It's not something that is taxing, but they're absolutely fabulous. You can play with colours, you can put different size beads in, you can play with different gemstones, you can keep it consistent. You can do this with sterling silver and sterling silver beads if you want, and then patina it, which would look amazing. So keep going until you've got all of those attached. And then when you've got them attached, I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to assume that that's the end. Okay, so when you've got the full length you want, by the way, there's nothing to stop you actually using this as a means of creating some earrings as well. Or you can do, if you do it longer, you can do a torque style necklace. You know, it is scalable, so you can do it smaller. You can actually make them into rings. So if you're using the 0.4 stones, you could do a ring with a smaller loop on the end and take it round and fasten it at the back. So we're going to assume we've finished, and we're going to match the number of loops we did there, because otherwise it's going to look a little bit funny. So we're going to go once, twice, 3 and 4. Okay, I'm going to trim this wire now. So I'm going to trim that off, and I can now trim it off the other side. So what I want to do is to make sure this isn't anywhere that's going to catch. So you don't want it hanging below where it's going to scratch. You don't want it sticking up, and you want to cut it as close in as you can to that wrap. So don't cut it off and leave a little bit round. You want to cut it as close as you can to that wrap, and then take your flat nose pliers and just run them around to make sure that that end is well and truly out of any harm's way, and there's not going to be a problem. Same with the other side. You're going to cut it down and run that round, and then we want to put a loop on. So because we've gone horizontal, we're going to do another horizontal loop. So I'm going to start off by just kinking that over. Then with the same, and this is why your baling pliers are great for doing this, you're going to pop that in, but go past where you want to go. to get that loop, you're going to go past and then roll it down, because it's very difficult to get it to come into that exact spot. So roll it down, and then when you cut, you're cutting, if I turn that over, you're cutting where these two are meeting. So you want to cut there. Now, if you've got flush cutters, make sure it's the flat piece that is sitting on this bit, because that's the bit that's staying, and that's where you want the flat cut. So quite handy with these flush cutters, the angle is actually sitting nicely on the other part of the circle. So I'm just going to cut that down, and then I've got the perfect loop done. So you've got your loop. Likewise, this can also be used as connectors. Make a nice connector. They'll do all sorts of things. It's a very scalable type of project. So that's your basic unit. That's your basic bracelet. The one thing we haven't got on there, and I'm going to spin this round, is we need to see how to do this clasp. So again, I've got a piece of 1mm wire, and we're going to bend that in the middle. So I'm using my flat nose pliers. Whenever you bend wire, if you push your wire against a flat surface, if you do that, you'll get a better bend than if you pull it. If you pull it, you'll get a curve. If you push it like that, you get a nice right angle bend. Then move your pliers out a little bit to continue that bend. I know it opens it up, but what you're not getting is this profile of the cutters showing. So then you can squidge that, and yes, that is a technical term, closed. There's different ways people do this. Some people do the nibble method, which is little and sharp. I like to hold those two flat, and then just nice, gentle, consistent pressure to close those together, and then you get this nice flat finish. Put a little kick in the end. You just want that little bit kicked up, and then we're going to go back to our baling pliers. Make sure these two wires are nice and parallel. You don't want a big loop. I would again use that sort of middling loop there and roll it over so both of those are the same length. So you can make it as short or as long as you want. And then you want about a centimetre, slightly less than a centimetre. Just cut those two ends off, and with the smallest loop on your pliers, just roll those two back round to create your connection, and they should be the same size. Let me just tidy that one up. There we go. And then, because you've just done these as a straight loop, you can open that up, pop in your clasp, and you are good to go. And that is, I'll turn him back around. That is your gemstone wrapped bracelet. Now we're going to go on to the next chapter. So in this project, we're going to make these swirl earrings, which I also think are quite wave-like. I do like, if I do anything like this, as an earring, as a pair, I always want them to both curve in. That's back to my photography background. When someone looks at you, if these were turning outwards, they draw the eye away from you. And likewise, if they're both turning the same direction, your eye will follow from one ear across your face to the other ear, and again, you've lost their attention, they've gone off somewhere else. So by doing that, they come from your earring across your face, hit the other one, and get sent back round. So it keeps it centered here. That's the theory behind it. So for these earrings, I've done the two coils, because they are made with little coils, in the opposite direction. So one I've wrapped anti-clockwise and one I've wrapped clockwise. But all that means is when you're wrapping it, one you go sort of from left to right, and the other one you go from right to left. You can do it in with the same hands, in the same motion. My mandrel for this is a 35mm diameter mandrel. That conveniently happens to be a deodorant cap that I use. It's an arbitrary number. You could use a hammer, you could use all sorts of things to get this diameter. You just want a very, very thick mandrel. You just want something that's going to give you that substance. You can make them smaller, it's absolutely not a problem. So once you've got them, I would say as you complete them, as you create that loop, I refer to them all the time. So I will create that initial scroll on one, then I'll do it on the other, and then I'll measure them. Don't forget you're doing them in reverse. So when you create that, then you can measure them. Then we'll start doing one, and then once you've completed one, you've got the reference for the other. They do pull out of shape as you make them, so you're going to put them back into shape. So you've still got that reference. So whichever way you're doing it, one of them is always a reference to the other. So we're going to start with this one. Like I say, it's a little coil. It's about 2 1/4 times around your mandrel, and then cut it. So you've got this overlap here, which allows you to roll back. We're going to roll back with our baling pliers to make the loop, and then we're going to fetch this round and fetch it in and pull the whole thing in. So first off, we're going to make that initial loop, and you might have to just ease it out slightly to get that initial kink in that wire, and then you can carry on creating that loop. So this time I am going to leave it as a P. So you've created your loop, and you're going to create your loop in the other one going in the opposite direction. So as you can see, we've got our matching pair. So as you're doing this, I would do them together, and you'll keep them so they're as close as you can get to being a matching pair. So we've got our 0.4 wire, which is what we're going to be using to wrap with, and I've already put on, I've used 9 of these 4mm labradorites. You can use any gemstone, doesn't really matter. I think they look lovely with that translucency, and you get that light shining through. I think it's amazing. An opaque gemstone will still work, but I really like the light coming through and being able to travel around it. So we're going to, before we put that wire on, we're now going to curl these in. So I can go to my round nose pliers, and I'm going to create a little loop on the inside. And because I'm only going to do a little loop, it doesn't really matter that I'm using the pliers, because I know I'm going to be using towards the end of them. So I'm going to take that around. Now, as you get to where they're about to meet, move your hand, because wherever you put your hand, so by holding it there, I'm limiting that loop to there. By holding it here, by moving it around, as you watch, that whole thing curves, but it's stopping curving where my hand is. So wherever you put your hand, it will stop that curve. Now, because I haven't done that in a smooth motion, it's altered how I would curve. Don't worry if you have to go back to it. So you can take it to there, and you can still fetch it in. Don't worry about using your fingers to take that shape. Once you've got that one, then you're going to try and repeat that. This is the harder bit with the other one. So we're going to start off with that little loop. There we go. And then we're going to start that curling round. And you can see this time I've gone so far, then I'm going to reposition my pliers and my hand and fetch that a bit down so it was much smoother. Now we're going to measure them. So turn that back to front and measure them. And that's not bad, really. You may find you have to just manipulate it a little bit, move it into position. That's fine. Get them as close as you can, and that's your good starting point for having the 2 earrings. So now we've got our matching pair of earrings, we can start wrapping. For this one, to do it on the reel is quite difficult, because obviously you've got to pass it through, and we've got a circle. You can manipulate it round here. It's fiddly. I personally wouldn't do it. It's easier to cut a piece off. I've got far too much on here, but you are going to wrap all the way up. So I've got about 1.5 meters or 2 meters, and that's a good starting point. So I'm going to pop my end through. Now, don't worry about fetching that. fetching some through and using it to wrap this side. You don't always have to go from the other side. So we're going to wrap 1, 2, 3, get 3 little wraps on there, and I'm going to go down so that it's going to finish at the back, and I'm going to slide that up. Now I've noticed I've got a little gap there. I just want to close that down with my pliers. Okay. So now we're going to do as we did for the bangle, more or less, except we're not going over the top. So we're going to attach these to the inside. Now with the bangle, they were slid on. These are actually going to be attached from the inside. So you're going to take your wire. We're still going to go that 1.5 times round. And I am going to shorten this just for the demo, because you need to take your time feeding this through. So I'm just going to shorten that off. If you want, you can do it in 2 separate halves. So if you do struggle with feeding the wire through, then do this section of it and then do the binding section that's going to come in a bit as a separate piece of wire. So feed that through once and then through again. And again, it locks it in place, so you're giving it no room to sort of gap or struggle or move, because you're locking it into place. I'm going to slide down the next one, and again we're going to do the same thing. So you're going to add these 9 beads on. Each time you're just locking it through, sliding them all down. So that one hasn't gone, and you can see straight away it didn't go back round, and lock it through. Come on. This is why you need to take your time, because otherwise you'll start getting kinks in your wire. If you find your wire kinks, so by that I mean that's a kink, don't try and pull it out. Don't try and straighten it up like that. That becomes very fragile, and that's where breakages happen. Slide it back, open that loop out and pull it back round, and there you go. It's now free and easy again. So we'll pull that, finish pulling that through. Once you've gone all the way round, so if we take this down to here, we're now down to the bottom. So this is one of those that you could make with the 0.8. It would still take with the 0.8. I'm going to make this a bit shorter again for ease. You would keep the length. So once you've got down to the bottom, you've done a few wraps. I think you get about 4 wraps of the individual wire. Just feed it through. And then we're going to bind. So if you've not done binding before, it's a great way for, it's just connecting 2 pieces of wire or more pieces of wire together. What it does is give you strength. So if you've got 10 pieces of narrow string, they're each of them quite fragile if they're just lengths. As soon as you twist those together or bind them together, then they're clubbed together for strength. The same with laminated wood. Each of those sheets is quite fine and fragile. As soon as you laminate them together, there's strength in numbers. By doing this, what you're doing is you're binding those together so that they're giving each other strength. They're holding this whole thing into position. So by doing that, we want to go from doing on just the 1 wire, and then we're going to go over the 2. So initially it will be flat sort of to the front, and then it will go side to side. So when you're binding together, it's the same with most wire wrapping. You want it as close as you can. So don't do it very loose like that and then push it up, because what you'll get is big loops in your wire. You want to keep it as close as you can. So generally, as I'm binding, my thumb will push it up as I'm doing it. I don't want to be going through these 2 wires, so there's no issue with me keeping a gap. I want them as tight as I can, so I'm keeping quite a firm tension. You'll notice I keep moving my finger up and my thumb so that I'm holding it as close to that point as possible. So this is why you can't have it's on the reel, because it's obviously got to pull through. When you're using your 0.4 wire, if you hold it in the same place and you wrap, what will happen is you'll weaken that place and you will snap it. Okay, so as you're holding it, don't hold it in one place. Hold it quite close to where you're working, and then each time you come through, you're going to be holding it in a slightly different place. So it makes it easier to use. It doesn't make it fragile. It's very strong until you do a repetitive action on it. So bind that all the way to the top, and then you're going to trim off your wire from the bottom and the top. Trim it off as close to that join in the loop as you can, and then you can just squidge it through with your flat nose pliers. Obviously then you're going to re-measure it against the other one as you make it, and then you'll end up with your pair of earrings. And having finished those, we're now going to go on to the next chapter. In this chapter, we're going to look at one of my favourite makes, these little rose rings, and you can make them as connectors, you can make them as earrings. They're such a fun little thing to make. They are always popular if you sell at craft shows. They're a good, they don't take long to make. You can sell them for low cost. There's very little in it. All you're using is a little bit of wire and a little bit of time, and people love them. They really do love them. So what do we need? We need a piece of wire. I've got a piece that's about 20 inches long. I'm going to use my mandrel. You want it to be slightly bigger than your finger finished ring size. So I'm just going to pick an arbitrary. If you're selling them, then you can make them all sizes. So I've gone round 3 times. So my ring shank is going to be 3 times round there. I'm then going to cross over my wires. So I'm just going to cross them over and give them a twist. Right, so that's the clue. This is this technique is so good. I love teaching this technique. I'm going to fetch that one round to meet the other one, and then I'm going to chase them. Basically, you're just chasing them around, and every now and then you're going to cross them over. So when it hits the other one, either just cross it over or just leave it there and then fetch the other one around. So you're tag teaming, and whenever they cross, that's where you get that sort of petal stage of the rose going. So wherever they cross, you're getting that little bit of a petal. And because it's sort of random, and it doesn't matter if it's a bit up, if it's a bit down, I'm going to fetch that one a bit further round. There we go. You don't want to stay down there. There you go. I'll hold it in place. So you just keep chasing them around. You can do them bigger and looser, so you get a more organic open rose style. You can keep them tight. You can build them up sort of quite high, so you can get a big bit of height, which gives you that sort of more closed in rose, almost bud feel, but you're still getting those petals just opening. So just keep going round, and every now and then you're just going to cross them. So there you've got your rose, but we've got these ends to finish. So take them so they're now opposite each other. Just pull that one a little bit tighter. There we go. And what we're going to do, slide the mandrel off, and this is why you need to make it a bit bigger than you need. You're now going to wrap these through and around those other 3 wires. So give them 2 wraps around. I've pulled them tight. Now that's clumped those together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a pair of flat pliers and just straighten that out and give that a little bit of a squidge. Tuck that underneath if you want. If you want to, you can make a little leaf shape with that. That's an embellishment you can make. Again, just wrap that over and through your ring shank. Pop it back on the mandrel to give it that little stretch. And as you can see now, because you've got those wraps in, that's now quite a bit smaller. Depending on how many wraps you give it, you can pull that quite tight, trim those off. Cut them nice and close. and just tighten them up with your flat pliers so that they're not going to stick in. And there you have your little rose ring. As I said, always popular, great fun as little gifts, very easy to make, as you can see, but so effective. Yeah, have fun making them. We're now going to go on to the next chapter. In this chapter, we're going to make this necklace. So this style of art, and I'm going to call it artwork, is known as, it's known as a lot of different things. I knew it as wire and nail. A lot of people knew it as nail and string, and used to put nails in and then used to go over and make patterns, and it's fab. And it came into jewellery, and it's amazing. It's so effective. You get such a great different sort of aspect to your jewellery, and it's very 3D. If I turn that sideways, you can see how thick it is. You can even pop stuff in there if you want to. It's a lovely technique. You can do it with as many beads as you want. If you do it with 5, you get a pentagram. If you do it with 6, you get a 6-sided star. And you can use thicker wires. I've done it with a lot more than that. I think there's 20 beads on there. It doesn't really matter how many beads you put on. It doesn't matter if it's even or odd. You can just keep going round. So I've preloaded my 1mm wire. You can do this with 0.8, but be careful as you're pulling it in because it will be easy to distort. It will hold up to it, so you just have to be a bit more careful when you're taking the wire across. Where they cross, so I'm going to pull it into a circle space. I'm going to take one up for a bail. So I'm just going to bend that one up there. That's going to be my bail. And then I'm going to wrap the other piece to hold that into place. So I've gone all the way round, and I'll come back to that afterwards. It's going to come out of shape. Put it back into your circle space. Don't worry about that bit sticking up there. Right, I've got some 0.4 wire. Again, if you wanted to do this with make a pentagram, then I'd probably use a 0.6 wire. But I'm going to start off with just wrapping it a couple of times around here. So the idea is, and I'll probably get this one different to that one. The idea is you take it from one to another, and then you start cycling round. So you can go for a big place like that. You can see that wire. There we go. And it will close that gap in the middle. Or you can keep it as shallow as you like. Just be a bit careful. If you're too shallow, you might end up having to sort of just curve those round a bit. So I'm going for a middle of the road one. The times round you go is reliant on the number of beads you've got, because you're going around the number of beads. That just makes your hole bigger or smaller. So you go across there. You don't even have to count how many there are, because all you do is fetch the back one across to the next bead. You take it across, you move over. So each time, so we're moving this time in an anti-clockwise direction. Doesn't matter if you go clockwise or anti-clockwise, you're just moving one bead round each time, and you're going all the way round. Now you can do this off the reel, you can do it on the reel, you can shape it if you want into different shapes. I've kept it round, and you just keep going. You're going to cross there until you've gone all the way round. If you want, you can, I think we're about there, you can stop part way and have it as a different effect. So just keep going all the way round till you get back to the beginning. And then when you've got back to the beginning, you're going to loop the wire through a couple of times between the last pair of beads. So just take that a couple of times round, trim off your wire. You can do this and have two different colour wires chasing each other as well. That's a really great effect. So there's a lot of different effects you can do this. Trim off both of the wires. Right, so with this wire here, I'm going to take that around this way. There is a back and a front. I'll come back to that in a second. I'm just going to trim that down slightly so that I've got that flat end. And then we're going to do that little spiral. So we're going to start off with a small loop, similar to what we've done on the spiral earrings, but we're going to keep going. So we want it to actually be up against each other. So once you've got to that point, turn to your flat nose pliers and gently keep rolling it in. So this will keep coiling down. And then you can use these as decorative ways of finishing ends. If you want to cut it off and tuck it in, then that's absolutely fine. But this just gives you another decorative means of finishing your wire. So you can take that all the way to the top. And you've got that nice little detail sitting there. We're then going to use this wire as a bail. It's a simple bail. It's a bail you can use for all sorts of things. Bend it over. Take your bailing pliers. You can decide how big a loop you want. If you're going to put a thick cord or a seed bead rope through there, then go for a bigger one. If you're just putting a chain through there, then keep it quite small. And I would just give this a single wrap round, or you can just create a loop like we've done with the earrings. Pull it in nice and tight, trim that bit off, and then just chase that in. Now this, I'm not going to be able to put my flat nose pliers on, so I'm going to go in with the round nose pliers just to make sure that that end is tucked in nice and securely. Then all you've got to do with that is put your chain on. I did say they look slightly different from the front and back. So if you look at here, the size of that hole is different on each side. So in the back, it's a lot wider. You can see my finger is a lot wider than it is on the front. That's just the way it's wrapping round, because it's doing a slightly longer pass because you're moving it around on the back. So it's got a slightly longer length to go. So it makes that hole wider. So once you've gone all the way around, whether you go all the way around with it or whether you keep it as is just partly, or whether you chase it round with two different colours, because you could start and carry on the other section with the different colours. The options with this are fabulous. You can pop LED lights in there, hang them on your Christmas tree. You can do earrings, pendant, sky's the limit. So I hope you enjoyed this little one. We're now going to go on to the next section. In this section, we're going to have a look at this twisted bangle. I love these. They are, again, something that is very, very good to change up. You can alter how it's done. You can play with this a lot. I've kept it basic. Having the two different colours of wire really gives it an extra dimension. But for that inner wire, you could have a roll of gemstones. You could have a coil, you could have a woven section, all sorts. They don't just have to be 3 wires. Again, like I say, it's a scalable design. So for this one, for the I don't want to say basic one. It's not basic. For the original or the classic, the minimal design, you're starting off with 3 lengths of 1 mil. You could do this in 0.4. It should still have enough strength. I'd perhaps put a clasp on it for 0.4. And you want to bend them in the middle. Now you can't just bend them like that. You have to sort of fetch them round in a circle. So holding them very carefully, fetch them around so that you roughly get them pretty much bent in the middle. If it's a slightly different shape, just try and manipulate that into being a nice even, so it's a bit more, straighten that bit a bit. Just get that into a nice symmetrical shape and keep them 1 lot on top and 1 lot below. So all the while you are keeping it so that your hematite or your different colour is in the middle, and that they're lying flat. Now, if they don't fit perfectly flat at this stage, don't worry about it, but you can just bend them slightly just to hold that position. If you want, you can put a clamp on there, you could put masking tape to hold it. It won't matter very shortly. Now, the way the twist will happen depends on which one's on top first. So this one will turn out in the opposite direction to the one we've got there. So I'm going to twist these. I'm going to take the back wire and lift it up, and take that front wire and push it back. So I've split them 90 degrees, and then I'm just going to continue with that twist and then put them back so that they're parallel with the previous two wires. I'm now going to take the top wire, the ones that are coming over, and pull them so that they come up to and beyond the wire we twisted. Then we're going to take it back. So all it means is it comes and catches this one we've just twisted and pulls it back into the three. We're going to take the other two below and do the same thing. So you're going to take it beyond where they're twisted and pull it back into position, and then they're fixed. You're going to take that front one back, the back one front, carry on with the twist, put it back into its position, and then try and keep the same consistency. The front goes first or the back goes first. It doesn't matter which way round you do it, but try and sort of get into a rhythm of doing it. And like I say, it doesn't matter if you go top first to the left or right, it doesn't matter. If they look like they've got a bit crushed up, then just use your pliers to make sure they're all three lying flat again. So you just keep going along, giving it a twist, straighten them out, and then remembering which side you're going. Those are going over, those are going under, beyond, and then back into position. See how that one's got a little bit tight? I'm just going to push that out again, just to make sure that all of those are going to be visible. So you keep going like that down your full length of your bracelet. Again, if you wanted to, you need a lot more wire, but there's no reason why you couldn't make this into a necklace. There's no reason why you can't make this into a ring. Fetch that one over and beyond and below and beyond. And you'll find you get a consistent into a rhythm with doing it, and you sort of pick up speed because it becomes a muscle memory. So once you've got to the end, we're going to have to finish this. So I'm going to take these three and I'm going to bend them over. Now, like I said before, if you pull, it will create a big loop. I want that tighter, so I'm going to push that as a bend. And then I'm going to take the others and I want to create a loop to match the first one. So I'm going to pull it tighter in, keeping those down, but I want this to finish to the side of there. So pull it round. If the two ends aren't exactly right, let's just pull that open a little bit. There we go. And then you can pull them individually, but it's very difficult to get them even again. So I'm going to manipulate that because I've pulled that too tight. Just push that open a little bit. There we go, because I want those to finish up parallel to the other three. This, don't forget, is the back of it, sorry, the front of it. So you want to get it nice and tight. So you can see how those are now parallel, so it becomes a bit of a feature. And then we're just going to bend those again behind and out of the way. So that was the back. I'm going to take those up and out of the way. There we go. Put your pieces back in. Once they're there, provided you've left yourself with enough room, you can then just trim them off and tuck them down. Let's trim those off first. You can always take more off, don't forget, you can't put it back on. Okay, so I've taken those off. I'm going to trim those back a bit more. And then make sure they're pointing down. Just do that little kink at the bottom with them to make sure they're pointing down. And then you're going to have your bangle. So if I turn this one round, you can see where you get this sort of slight extra twist on it, but the ends are all tucked up out of the way and you're good to go. If you make it with 0.8, then I would be tempted to add a clasp to that. The 1mm gives you that much extra strength. So like I say, play with different colours. Again, play with your sterling silver and your bare copper, patina it. You can even put a row of beads. So the only wires that twist are the copper wires on this. The hematite wire does not twist at all. So if you put that central one as a line of beads, then that will always sit there as a line of beads. So there are loads of different things you can do with this, but have fun of making those. Make them in different colours, use them as stackers. They're just such a fabulous little project to do. So now we've finished with this one. I hope you've enjoyed watching this tutorial. I've been Alison Tarry and you've been watching the Jewellery Maker Academy. I hope you'll come back and join us again soon.